we go. I can just relax now. My job is done. Well, welcome everyone. We got Mariana here as well. Some of you are able to be on camera. If you can, that is fantastic. And if not, no worries at all. This is a session that is all about you. So congratulations for being on here, for spending some time with me. I really do appreciate it. I know that your time is valuable and you could be 1,000 other places. So thanks for hanging out with me for the next little bit. Hello, Lori. Good to see you as well. So this is the Speak Plus mini workshop, and my name is Trisha Miltimore, for those of you that I do not know. So thank you for becoming part of my universe, and definitely give me a follow on LinkedIn if we're not already connected, so that we can stay connected. With that in mind, in the chat box, if you're comfortable, I think it's always great to put your LinkedIn profile and other people can connect with you as well. Because as thought leaders and speakers, it's very nice to be able to really connect with each other, learn from each other, and you just never know when that other speaker might be needed for an event that you're at. And you're like, oh, I know someone who is an expert in menopause and perimenopause and women over 40, right? Dawn, that you just never know, right? So please do put your LinkedIn connections there, however you would like to be connected with as well. And don't forget, we will be sending out the recording. So take the notes that you need, but try to be present and absorb as much as you can in this moment. So as your Speak Plus creator and coach, my entire mission in life is to help you to get on your stage. Because I have personally seen that when you get on your stage, and when I say your stage, it means whatever platform you are seeking. So that could be, maybe you're a CEO and you want to be able to speak with more confidence and charisma and influence to your team. Or maybe you would like to be on a workshop stage offering local events or events throughout the country. Maybe you would like to be on a keynote stage where you're opening for big conferences, small conferences. So everyone has their own idea of the platform. So we call that your stage in Speak Plus. Now, doesn't matter what stage you're on, the same tools and ideas are definitely applicable to each one. So that's what I'm going to be diving into today. I have spent 25 years since I was very young. At 17, I knew that I wanted to be on stages. I was like emceeing the pep rallies. I was the Miss Leadership girl, doing all that. And it was just something that really spoke to me. And it's, one of those things, as Oprah calls it, it keeps calling you back. So now, after 20, 25 years of learning the hard way how to get on stages and how to make the most impactful presentations, I've really condensed it down into some tools and tips and systems that can help you to just save that time and some of that heartache, and ultimately, in some cases, lots of money, because I've spent many, many dollars on it. So today I have for you some very key points that I do want you to use so that you can essentially, after this call, immediately put into practice. And while I do have the Speak Plus program, I'll talk about that at the end. This really is a value-rich hour, 45 minutes, I should say, just for you. So what I'm sharing today, you can take and use. This is not a sales call. Ultimately, I love for you to come in my program, but I really want you to be able to use these tools. So take note and enjoy. Anyone have any questions, or can everyone hear me? Any technological issues? No, we're good? Okay. Yay. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. Like I mentioned, at the end, I am open to Q&A, and I have blocked off some time. So if you have to jump after 45 minutes, I get it. And if you want to hold back afterwards and ask a few questions, I'm here for it too. Okay. So let me share my screen, because that is always the funnest part. And here we go. So this is a mini workshop, jam-packed, lots to be said, but ultimately you're here because you have something that you would like to say. You have a story, a message, something that's either brewing inside of you, or you have already had experience sharing and you want to share it even more. The microphone, the stage, your stage, the message that you want to get out, because you have a calling also, I would imagine. It's why you're here, to share those messages. But the number one question I get from people who I work with who are like, okay, I'd like to do more of this speaking work, which can mean a lot of different things, is what am I going to say? Like, I'm sure, and this is usually the biggest problem. You have so many ideas and you have so much knowledge and experience and, stories in your brain, but it's hard to kind of extract them. I get called the extractor sometimes in the Speak Plus program, because my job is to help you take those out of your brain and put them into the world. But what am I going to say is one of the biggest questions. And of course, the second follow-up question to that is, well, and how am I going to say it? Where and how? How am I going to actually say it in a way that people are going to benefit from it? Because I would imagine you're here to make a difference. You're not just here because you want to talk, although most of us love to talk, but it's because you want to make a difference with your stories and your words and your experiences. So, how am I going to say it? What am I going to say? And here's the question I think that we should focus on just a little bit more is how will people feel when they receive my energy, words, and wisdom, right? So it's not necessarily what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, but how are they going to feel from your energy, from the moment you walk on your stage and you're sharing who you are, which is unique to you, how are they going to feel? And when we focus on that arena, it's a little bit less overwhelming for sure. I love this image because I think it's an example of how most of us as influencers, speakers, thought leaders, workshop leaders, CEOs kind of feel is that we're broadcasting something and we want to make sure it's clear and not fuzzy and that it makes sense. Yes. So we essentially are a platform of broadcasting, which is a privilege. And it's an honor to be able to, like right now, share my ideas and thoughts with you. And of course, you with those audiences that you get to engage with. So your stage truly does await. It is there for you. It's a matter of just going after it and feeling really confident because you know what you're going to say. You know how you're going to say it, but most importantly, you're clear on your goals of how you want people to feel from it. As a Speak Plus coach, my job really is to help you develop your energy and your voice to speak with that clarity, courage, and the confidence to get on your stage to do the work so that you can make maximum impact. That's the goal. Give me a little like a yeah, if that's what you want to do is make impact. Yes, right? Yes, of course. We are not here because we just want to hear our voices amplified. As fun as that is. So, I'm going to be focusing on three things today. Number one, content. What are you going to say? Number two, delivery. How are you going to say it? And number three, that feeling of how people are going to, the feeling they are going to have from hearing you and experiencing your energy. That's called impact. And we'll spend quite a bit of time on the impact as well. So, content, delivery, and impact. You ready? Here we go. Number one, the first step, what are you going to talk about? What are you going to say? Content. Now, many people come to me with tons of content. They have graphs, they have charts, they have data, they have their expertise in their area of focus, or perhaps you're a doctor or you are a long-standing business owner who has just years and years of experience and expertise, and you have lots of data to support that, right? And data is great, but more powerful than data because nobody ever remembers a spreadsheet from a presentation. Like you tell me about the last pie chart you saw and you're like, oh my God, that pie chart was exhilarating, right? I mean, sometimes they can be if you're kind of nerding out on the topic, but for the most part, we want to affect people with how they feel. So it is your stories, the lessons that if you have learned along your journey of becoming an expert in your field or a thought leader in your field, the stories are the most important. They really are like the gold of everything you do as a speaker. From the moment you get on stage, what people will remember are the stories. It's what it gets them excited, it gets them interested. Our brains are hardwired to receive and to feel stories. So, your first step to creating content that is, again, maximum impact, because all content can be delivered, but this is maximum impact, is to choose or think about one overarching lesson that you've learned in life. Now, this is what you can do kind of on your own time. And don't worry, you'll get these slides as well. But what is that one lesson? Maybe it's a mantra you live by, or it's something that you had a profound experience, usually some form of, a version of trauma or hardship where you have persevered, you've moved through it. And from that respect of looking back, from that perspective, you can see the lesson that you learned. Now, that is a powerful many stories in there actually. But so what is that one overarching lesson that you have learned? And think about that. Usually it comes to you pretty quick, that first one, because it's something you think about all the time. So you choose one lesson that you've learned and we start there, right? Because there's thousands that you could use, but we want to start with just one. And once you learn the skill of crafting a story, you can then apply it to crafting many, many more. So here's what you got to do. And this is an example. Think of a moment in your life that affected you in a way that it's ingrained in you. It has changed who you are. So the story that comes to my mind often is that of ice cream, where I was about 8 years old, around there. And my dad said, kids, my brother and I, we're going to go for ice cream. But that particular day, I was very cranky, like cranky, cranky. Now that I have 4 kids of my own, I get how I feel like they get like that too. Just cranky. I still get cranky. What am I talking about? So, I wasn't super cranky that day. I remember feeling like that. And I just, to prove my point how cranky I was, I'm like, I don't want ice cream. Now, I love ice cream. I love food. I love all of it. But I was digging my heels in, so I was taking a position. My dad ushered us into that station wagon he always had to have. Sitting in the back, we drive down to the local Tasty Treat, it was called. Everyone gets out of the car. I just sat there because I was cranky. I wasn't going to have any ice cream. My brother comes back from ordering his like triple high, melting down. He's just eating it up. So just enjoying it. And I sat in that car and he got in and I looked at him like with just like, oh. And then we started driving away. And I was shocked because my dad didn't actually get me any ice cream. And I realized in that moment, as my father drove away from Tasty Treats, that I, in fact, was not going to get ice cream, even though I said I didn't want it. And then as we drove away, I just started bawling. And to this day, I still remember the sadness I felt about not having ice cream. It's kind of silly, I know, but I felt it. I was a kid. And then my dad said something to me that has always stuck with me. And it's one of these overarching lessons that I think about all the time. He said, Trisha, in life, if you want something, you are going to have to ask for it. Right? It's a pretty powerful line. And even as an 8-year-old, I knew that was wisdom I should hold on to. So you want to write out that defining moment in your life that has taught you a lesson. And the ice cream story is kind of like a silly one, but it made a big difference in my life. So often when I'm thinking about something I want to go after, I have to ask for it. Just got to ask for it because I want it. So think of that lesson, write it down. You could even, some people, depending on your system, you want to like write it out with a Google Doc and just get every detail. And then over time, we're going to condense it down. But write out that defining moment that has taught you a lesson. You want to think about what happened, how it made you feel, right? I was so sad as an 8-year-old, bawling because I didn't get my ice cream. And then, of course, the final piece is what you learned. That is the story formula. And you can use that formula for every single story that you share with your audiences. What happened, how it felt, and most importantly, what you learned. Because what you learned is the bow of the package that you're going to be offering the audience. And they will receive it in the way that fits for them because they will see themselves in your story. A great tip here is to create a story inventory. You can do that with like notebooks. I have these notebooks everywhere. I got little ones, big ones. I often will use my phone because I have notes in my phone. When I'm going for a walk is when I usually have my best ideas, apparently, or in the shower, of course, or right before I fall asleep to wake myself back up. So a story inventory is very important because you will not remember that great idea or that powerful story probably 15 minutes later. I don't know about you. That's what happens to me. Maybe you're gifted. I certainly am not in that arena. So get your pens out, get your phones out, and make sure you write those ideas down. Because once your brain starts thinking about stories, you're going to find yourself seeing them everywhere. Like, you'll be at the mall and you might see a little kid struggling with something. And you're like, oh, I remember when something like that happened to me. Or you hear a story about someone who's going through something really, really big or profound. And you're like, that I had an experience similar. So make sure you keep writing those down. They are your gold. Stories are powerful. Number 2, after you have some content that you're molding and you're working with, you need to think about your delivery, how you're going to share it. And I wanted to make sure I included some tools and tips just for this. So the second stage is delivery. So you're at the microphone, you know the story you want to share, but how can you share it in a way that is most impactful, most engaging, and most reflective of you, right? Because everyone in this call, you're very unique. You have your own energy. And I find people come to me like they want to be like this speaker, or they want to be able to get up there and be like so smooth. That is not the power of speaking. You don't have to be smooth. I just said, "Oh, right there," because I was thinking about it. And it's okay to have flaws and not be perfect and just super, super like polished. In fact, nobody really wants to hear polished. They want to hear you. So it's really being able to connect with that genuineness about yourself and owning your energy and knowing the right people who need to hear it will receive it. And there's a little bit of faith involved in that. So let's talk about delivery. Words, of course, are important. Voice, how you speak, the volume you speak at. Sometimes you get a little bit quieter when it's something you really want to drive home. Talk about your space. Now, obviously, we're virtual, so the space I use is like this box. Whoop, whoop. But your space is so important when it comes to being on stage, or if you're doing virtual as well, because even just using this box, you can still use this box. And of course, in caps lock. Yeah. Caps lock. Is that right? Right. Caps. Yeah. In caps energy. Because again, it's your energy. And this is probably the hardest bridge to cross, is that people don't really appreciate how much unique energy they have, because there are thousands of people who speak probably on the exact same area of focus that you speak on, but they're not you. They are not you. And I've learned this again and again. I was just at in Fort St. John, BC, Canada. There is just an incredible conference, happens every year. It's called the Spark Conference. And I've been with them for 11 years, which is like a career highlight. And so they bring in some of the best speakers from Canada and the United States. And, everyone's kind of saying the same thing for the most part, motivational speaking about work life and wellness and all this kind of stuff. But everyone has their own energy. And I've definitely learned that someone who, loves the energy I bring to the stage may not another person may not appreciate it as much, of course. And they like that person who's like really kind of more settled or calmer or whatever the case may be. So everyone's energy is unique, and just owning it. And you're not responsible for how people receive you. You're responsible for your words, your voice, your space, and your energy and your intention. And that you just got to put it out there. And then how people receive it is on their end. So it just takes a little bit of the weight off the shoulders, right? I want you to imagine that you are a host. You are hosting people on this crazy bus, and you're saying, "Hey, come on my bus. I'm taking you for a ride." There's agency as a speaker where you are engineering the experience. So owning the fact that you're engineering it, you're inviting people to come on the bus with you, and you're driving them around. And so you're leading, so you're hosting the experience of whatever it is, that workshop, that keynote, that meeting, that virtual session. You're a host and leader of that experience. Engineering experiences that fuel, that's the job, connection and engagement. Fuel connection and engagement. Because that's what people want to have, right? That's what, at the end of the day, what are events? It's bringing people together so they can feel connected and engaging them in a way where they can learn as much and grow as much as possible. So here are some tools that you can use. These are practical tools that I teach in the Speak Plus program, and we actively use, that you can use when you're on stage, whatever that stage may look like for you. The first one is PI. PI is an acronym. Every speaker has to have some acronyms. It stands for purpose, interaction, and experience. Pie is like, I want you to imagine this warm, delicious apple pie. You walk into a room and you're serving everyone a slice of it, right? So it's kind of setting the tone. It's a very helpful tool when you're thinking about how to open your session, and also a great tool for closing it. You're going to talk about your purpose. You're going to offer or invite some interaction, and then of course, share what everyone's going to experience, so they kind of know what's coming up. This is important for me in exercise classes. I want to know what we're doing and how long it's going to go for, right? And I think people sitting in the audience appreciate that as well. So PI. So here's an example so you can get really connected to what I'm talking about. Here's an example. So PI, purpose. Today, I'm going to share my top tools and tips to help you be a more confident and impactful speaker. That is the purpose of our session together today. Here's the interaction. How many of you experience stress when it comes to speaking in front of people? Anyone ever experienced any stress for that? Give me a little woot woot if you have, right? So I'm interacting, I'm asking for that engagement. Virtually, you could do a lot of other versions of that, but in person, getting people to be like, "Yeah, that's me," or, clapping or thumbs up, something that even simply asking the question engages their brain. And the E is about the experience. Well, over the next hour, I promise to deliver highly effective tools that will help you actually enjoy sharing your thought leadership. Are you ready? Yeah. So it's an opening. And I think people, or I know people often struggle with openings. Like, how do I start it? And pie is a great way to do that. So there you have it. That is a practical tool of how to open and then even close with the exact same formula. Offering some pie in the beginning, offering some pie at the end. I hope that is useful for you. Asking questions, as I mentioned, is really quite engaging because our brains just want to solve things. So whether you get people to raise their hand or not, or a thumbs up, or whatever the case, maybe just asking the question is going to get their brains working. So here's your second practical tool. First one is pie. The second one is asking questions. And it's interesting with asking questions because they can be all kinds of different questions, right? Like, here's one. Have you ever received feedback? So, just asking a question to get people engaged. Ever received feedback from your significant other and found yourself incredibly appreciative of their constructive criticism? Yeah, have you? You're just like, thank you, husband, for being so wonderful and giving me such great feedback. Pretty sure that's not how it goes in my family, right? It's usually, no, I don't, even though deep down I'm like, I probably do. I probably do that. Just what, this, of course, it's mostly with family, right? If your boss is giving you constructive feedback, it's different. But so this is an example of asking a question, getting people interested, and making them think, right? Now, there's humor in this one, especially if you were to set it up with a story or, there's so many different variations of this, but there can be humor in questions and there can be thought-provoking ideas in questions. But practically speaking, a question is simply a way of getting the brain sparked up. It's a great way to kind of break up your content. So make sure you throw in as many questions as you feel are valuable. Now, questions can also take some air out of the room, can get people really thinking, really introspective. This is one of the questions that I ask in many of my keynotes and workshops. And it's a powerful one, and it's delicately used. I often will ask, like, what truth in your life right now are you resisting? Yeah, it hits a button for many people because if we're resisting a truth, it's because we don't want to be aware of it. Because if we're aware of it, what? We feel we need to do something about it. So it's easier to have our head in the sand, to ignore it, to not think about that relationship we need to do something about, or the job that is maybe not exactly where you thought it would be, or your career, or anything, right? What truth are you resisting? So questions can be powerful in bringing people to their truth. Now, remember, though, that when you bring people to that place, you have to bring them back up. You have to offer them some ways to not just sit there and kind of melt in the awareness that they're resisting a truth, because we don't want to leave people there either. We're engineering the experience for them. They're on our bus, and that is our responsibility. We talk a lot about that in Speak Plus as well, but I just wanted to plant the seed that if you are asking questions that are really powerful, that you might be connecting people to something inside of them that has a lot of emotional value, just be aware of where you're leading them when you move on to something else. But it is a powerful question. Now, the reason that questions are so powerful is because we are asking people to share a little bit about their hearts. And the third tool for all of us as speakers is to do the same, right? Like, imagine that these stories we share, these ideas we offer, they're really an extension of who we are. And one way to use that extension effectively is to use power statements. Power statements are one-liners. They are like the distilled nuggets from your stories, that truth, like that moment where I was said to, for my father, if you want something in life, you have to ask for it. That is a power statement. So you take any stories that you're sharing, you have that one lesson you learned, that powerful truth, and that becomes a power statement. And the reason why I call it a power statement is because most likely it's very connected to you and your experiences. And when you use it, people will feel the energy and emotion behind it. So power statements allow you to literally plant your feet on the stage, on the carpet, on the floor, wherever you are. Take a breath and share that truth with those who are sharing the room with you. A really, really practical tool that you can use. Here's an example of a power statement from my own experience is that life doesn't have to be so hard. Now, I just shared with you the power statement, but before that statement, I have a full, very practiced story that I include, and that is at the end of it. And just like my ice cream story, I give the context, I share the characters, my experience in it, and I always end with this, with that particular story, with life doesn't have to be so hard. And the reason why a power statement can be so effective is because of the story. So I never want to lose sight of the stories, right? And I'll give you an example, a very brief version of this one. I was at a conference. After I spoke, I was making some tea, and a lady walked up to me and she started sharing her life story. And while I stirred my tea and while she made her coffee, I heard things about her life that only no one would want to experience. Like she had been through tragedies that I cannot even imagine as a mother, as a human. And the whole time my mouth is just open. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then she said, as she stirs, she's like, there's one thing I've learned is that life doesn't have to be so hard. And what was powerful about that moment was not the wisdom that she kind of bestowed on me, but the fact that I was defensive inside from hearing it. And I didn't say it out loud, but inside I noticed my brain going, really? Life doesn't have to be so hard. Do you have to make nut-free lunches for 3 kids every day? Do you help run 2 businesses? Do you blah, 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 like all this crazy stuff was going on in my brain. I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I reacting that way? I didn't heard about her tragedies. And so that was the lesson, that I had a narrative in my mind constantly playing like a song on repeat, that yes, you can. That's my tagline for many things in my business. Yes, you can. But on the flip side of that, what I learned from growing up in an entrepreneurial family was that yes, you can. You can achieve whatever you want, Trisha, but you're going to have to struggle, and it is going to be very hard, and you're going to have to sacrifice. And so I didn't even know that was a narrative playing on in my brain until that moment when what she said to me triggered my awareness. So you can see how stories can take all kinds of different forms and paths to the actual power statement. So hopefully that is an example you can use and model when you're thinking of your own stories, right? So you have your story, the context, and of course that power statement. And you know what? Life doesn't have to be so hard. And just as a heads up for me, from that awareness, as soon as I made that connection, wow, I use this all the time. Every time I'm overwhelmed by something, I'm like, okay, you know what? Life doesn't have to be so hard. Life is hard and it can be hard, but often we make it harder than it needs to be. Yes, maybe sometimes. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about engaging and empowering your audience with those tools that I just shared with you for your content. So we've talked about content and delivery, apologies, engaging and empowering your audience. So use those practical tools, practice them, use them as much as you can, because the more you use them, the more they become second nature. I often get the question, Patricia, do I have to be funny? Like, do I have to be a comedian to be an effective speaker? So, are you funny? I'm asking you, are you funny? Do you find yourself funny? And I think everyone has your own version of humor. Well, let the pressure be released. You do not have to be super funny. Does humor help because it's relatable? Yes. But I've seen some very interesting, totally engaging speakers that their humor was simply their perspective, right? They're not making jokes. They're just talking about their perspective. And it's funny because it's like, oh, I see myself in that, or how they deliver it. So you don't have to be making jokes. But the key here is really to focus on again, that authentic energy you bring to the stage, right? You don't need to be anybody else. You just need to be you. And the more you do it, the more you'll get a sense of who you are. But at the beginning, try not to think too much about, am I funny enough? Am I this enough? Just show up as who you are. And the people that need to receive your energy and wisdom will. But if you do want to use some humor in your presentation, because that's a very common question I get, then yes, absolutely you can. I love using memes like this. I can't even imagine the self-control required to work at a bubble wrap factory. I mean, could you imagine that self-control? So you can add little pieces of humor like this. I even use these kind of this kind of humor in my keynotes. Everyone loves a good little cheesy meme and it gets people laughing. So you don't have to be funny yourself. You can use memes. You can use other kinds of humor if you would like. I wouldn't overthink it, but I wanted to bring it up because it's a very common question. So take the pressure off. You don't have to be anything but yourself and show up. And if you think it's super funny and appropriate, that's my challenge in life, then yes, why not share it, right? And when you get other people laughing, laughing brings people together. So we talked about your content, your delivery. Now let's focus on the impact, which is probably one of the motivating reasons why you are on this call. Share your wisdom and you will make impact. Whether you're doing a webinar like this, or you're doing a big presentation at work, or maybe at church, in your community, or on a stage for a conference, if you just simply share your wisdom and share your stories, you will make impact. I promise you that, because someone needs to hear what you have to say. Someone needs to hear what you have to say. I repeated it because I think it's pretty important. And it's having faith that knowing that something you have to share is of deep value, because they will see your story and they'll think, I can get through mine as well. Words, voice, space, and energy are all brought together to help you make this impact. But there are three vultures, three very common vultures. I think we all, in some way or another, are affected by these vultures that will get in your way of making your impact. So I'm going to jump through those for you, offer these ideas. So I want you to think, as I share them, like, where do you see them coming up for you? And in what way do they show up? Because these vultures show up differently for each person. But how are they showing up in your life? And in what ways are they subtly pecking away at your own potential and power? Are we good? Ready for this? Looking at my time. Okay. I got to get it done. 45. That's a speaker's rule. You never go over time or under. Okay, here we go. First vulture, it's a thought. It is, who am I to think I can? Right? So you're like, yes, okay, I have this calling. I want to share my ideas. I've gone through some experiences. I got lots to share. I got lots of wisdom. And then you get to that point where you're almost emailing someone like to join them on their at their event, or asking for the opportunity. But there's the vultures pecking away at your brain. Who am I to think I can? Now, this is a mindset, right? This is a limiting mindset, but it can feel like a belief. Who am I to think I can? And I'm sure at some point in your life, you have thought this. So when we do have this thought deep back in the, corners of our brain, the strategy here is you have to be aware of it first. So you're aware of it. And now we're going to turn it around. Like, you want to imagine that you're just like turning the ship around slowly. It takes time, but the more you practice it, the quicker it is. So when you think, who am I to think I can? I want you to think this instead. I am worthy enough to try, right? At the end of the day, it's probably more valuable to you. Well, I shouldn't say probably. It will be more valuable to you that you tried than that you didn't, because you have the calling. You cannot ignore it. That's why you're here. I am worthy enough to try. So who might think I can do that? I'm worthy enough to try. It's got to switch it around. The second vulture mindset is, can I actually do that? Ooh, that's a good one, right? Because how do we know we can do something until we've done it? But we have to do it to grow that confidence and courage muscle. That's a tough one, eh? So yes, can I actually do that? Well, if you have that thought, which most of us do, especially at any point in our careers, or expanding our abilities or our craft or mastering skills, turn it around and say, I can learn. I can learn. You may not know how to do it right now, but by doing it, you will learn. And there's just no shortcut. There's no way past that. You can read as many books as you want. You can study as many speakers on stage as you want. But until you do it and get on that stage and you feel that energy and you feel yourself channeling your wisdom, and wisdom sometimes from others, I don't even know where it comes from, you will not know that you can do it. So, but you can learn. You can be part of the process. Learn, learn, learn. That's your second vulture. The third one is, what will other people think? I find this is a common one for people in industries where they have lots of close colleagues, and they're like, what What are they going to think that I think I can get up and talk about this? Or maybe it's family, maybe family members. You're worried what they're going to think. Friends, what will others think? We're social animals. This is a reality of our brains, but it's a vulture and it will peck away at your potential and possibility. So when you think, what will others think? Turning that ship around, reframing it. Who will I inspire? Right? Who will I inspire? Many years ago, I spoke at a conference. I was cut short off the stage by 20 minutes because of the scheduling. So I wasn't even able to really finish. I had to like just cut it short. And I got an email a little bit later on that evening from a lady who said that at her table, this is an email, everyone was laughing because of how I said the word frustrating. I guess I say frustrating, like I don't really say they are. Huh, who knew? And then I was talking about menopause at the time because I was in my early 30s and I was pregnant. And I was making a joke that while my mom was having hot flashes, I was cooling her down and I was having labor pains. I think that's funny. Anyways, this person took exception and said, "And are you scared of menopause?" Other things in that email. Now, this person was trying to angle like they're helping me out, but we all know how people angle that way, what they are really trying to do. So interesting. I remember reading that email and thinking, wow, like, am I cut out for this? Like, should I even be doing this? Because you feel so demoralized. Not a week later, 5 days later, I was speaking at another conference. I delivered that exact same presentation and received a standing ovation. Now, it is not about the standing ovation. It is about the tenacity we all need as people and speakers, that someone needs to hear what we have to say and to never let what one person says derail us from moving forward, because your impact awaits, right? And when we think about who will I inspire, years later, someone who attended that conference where I was received a little better actually came up to me and said, "Wow, I was there that day and I was very young, and you told me that I shouldn't let my age hold me back. And I didn't." And she told me about some of the experiences that she's had since then, some of her successes and her journey. I was like, wow, okay. So you just never know who you're going to inspire. Could you imagine if I never went to that second event because I was so demoralized? I'm like, I'm out, I'm done. So who will you inspire? And you don't know. But by sharing your story, what did I say earlier? You will absolutely make impact. So there you have it. We got content. What are you going to say? Your stories are your gold. Delivery. How are you going to say it? Lots of tools to share with you, but I tried to pick a few that were going to be practical and usable right away. That's PI. That's asking the questions, different types of questions that evoke different emotions, feelings, and reactions. And of course, using humor when it feels good and authentic to you. Now let's talk about, or the third part piece, I should say, is that resistance. So impact is the goal. We often get misled into thinking more about the resistance of why we can't do it, shouldn't do it. What are people going to say? So those vultures, knowing the resistance we're facing is how we overcome it. That's my point there. So content delivery and focusing on your impact, and of course the resistance that could be getting in your way. And it's all about taking action. So if you remember anything about this short amount of time that we have together, please know you just need to take action. Just do something. Get on a stage, any stage. Maybe it's like a Chamber of Commerce stage, or maybe you want to do hold a workshop for your team members. Make it small, make it doable, but just do it because you have the calling. And I certainly I wanted to cheerlead you on that. If you have a reason to be sharing your thought leadership, it's because someone needs to hear it. And you just never know who you are going to inspire. So I have 5 minutes left. I want to tell you just a little bit about Speak Plus because it may be a great fit for you. I won't spend a large amount of time here, and then I'm going to open it up for Q&A as well. Speak Plus is a fully customized 12-week program for you as a thought leader and a speaker. I teach you everything I wish I would have learned in the last 20 years in a condensed format. We get you ready for the stage by helping you to week by week craft all the materials and everything you need to be applying to speak at conferences, if that's a goal, or to be able to speak with more charisma and confidence, and of course that courage as well. We have one-on-one time together every 2 weeks, and there's also a Facebook group where you can have some support, cheerleading, and share your ideas there as well. That's what it's all about. You can find out more details at passionateigniter.ca/speak plus. And if you registered by my website, everyone who registered via the website is going to be included in a draw for a one-on-one storytelling catalyst session with me. And if you didn't register via my website, you can simply just message me and put your email and your name, and I'll make sure you get into the draw. Because some of you may just come off of LinkedIn or come off with the Zoom link onto this with the Zoom link. So I want to get you in the draw. So just let me know your name and your email, and we'll get you in there as well. So that's for a storytelling catalyst session. So be looking for an email. It comes after this webinar with the recording and of course the name of the winner for that as well. I have some notes that I'm supposed to do because I don't want to get in trouble. I recorded make sure in the comments, leave your LinkedIn connection so we can be sure to be connected if that's something you'd like to do. Now, one thing I would love to ask, I guess I should finish talking about Speak Plus program. So the other piece is this. We start on any Monday. So it's kind of like an ongoing cohorts that come in. And if you are interested, please text me, email, but there is, by joining this webinar, you do save $150 with the code FALLSPEAK+. Usually people have some questions, we can chat just to make sure it's a good fit. I'm so much more about support than the sale. Obviously, this is what I do. Would love to have you on board, but it has to feel like a great fit for you too. So make sure I include that code for you to save $150 if it is of interest to you. One thing I would love to know is, what is the one tip or idea that resonated for you? Please share it in the comments. I'm always curious what does, resonate and sticks out, because you just never know. And every kind of webinar, different ideas seem to resonate. So I'll make sure I keep the ones that do and tweak the ones that don't. Now, I'd love to open it up to some questions. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to just, unmute yourself, ask away. I'm here for it. And if you have to run, I get that too. But thank you for everyone who did join in. I really appreciate it. Any questions? Yep, feel free. Yep.
Sure. What's, like you talked about speaking at, say, Chamber of Commerce events or whatever, like you start somewhere.
Yeah.
How would you sort of feel that you're a fit to some of those audiences? I feel like I'm going to be one of those people that has to work past my retirement age and maybe not really going to be someone that speaks to the working generation. So I feel, maybe as much as I like speaking or enjoy getting in front of an audience, that I'm not that person that really is going to resonate and go anywhere with the opportunity. Like you age out of the profession or the skill set. Or
Well, what is it that you are wanting to share?
well, just for example, like yesterday I had a big presentation to a group of people I'm in a program with, and I do work in grant writing, and so it was not a skill set that is within that cohort of people, so it was welcomed. But I was definitely speaking to an older audience, and I'm just thinking, as someone that is not, that's older, that may be speaking then to an audience of 25 to 40-year-olds, for example, they might just think, well, I'm sure there's someone 25 to 40 years old that can speak to this skill set or this kind of thing, that I've simply aged out of a lot of opportunity. Is that a concern?
I hear what you're saying. I think you're limiting yourself with your own ageism. They're the most successful speakers I know, and I'm quite connected with the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, are those who are 55 plus. And, they bring with them such a breadth of information and skills in sharing that information as well. So I would challenge you not to limit yourself. and focus, especially at this point, a little bit less on, well, what will others think, and more on what do I have to offer?
Okay.
Yeah, and connecting with that, and then start offering it. Now, maybe in the world, nobody wants to hear about what you have. Maybe if you're talking about, purple cats, no one cares about purple cats. No one wants to hear about purple cats. Well, you'll quickly figure that out. But I have a feeling if it's grant writing, you're gonna have an audience. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
no, it was well received yesterday and I got some good feedback. Overall, it went well.
fantastic. Yeah, I think age is not a factor. If you're talking about like how to be super, I mean, even if it's like how to be the best real creator on Instagram, if you rocket your content, your age doesn't matter.
Right.
People will connect, especially if you use the tools to connect. Humans are humans. We connect all in similar ways. Mhm.
Okay.
I hope that's
Thank you.
hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep putting it out there for sure.
Thanks.
Anyone else have any other questions about how to get on stage, how to market yourself? I mean, I'm here for all of that too. This is kind of Speak Plus 101. Anybody want to share some of the work they're doing now in as a speaker and a thought leader? Be great to learn. No? All
Well,
good. All good.
I'll
Yeah.
ask maybe just
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
side question. So the reason I was attending today and interested is I'm a property manager. I lead a team of property managers. They speak at AGMs, so it's more chairing meetings as opposed to like, speaking about a particular topic.
Mhm.
But you have a lot of messaging to convey. So I was trying to figure out sort of if this might be a good program to start maybe getting them into so they can deliver a little bit better with some of that stuff. But since it's sort of different, I guess I'm sort of wondering in my own head here, like, is there something similar? Like, do they need a full 12-week program, or is there really something that might be that you do that's maybe more geared towards sort of just improving speaking in general? Or
Mhm.
do you think it's really better that people kind of do a full program and you kind of, you need all those lessons even for the small stuff?
Right. No, that's a good question. Thanks, Greg. Um, So for something like your team members, is I think as you're referring to, right? I do
Yeah.
corporate training for confident communications. So that could be something different that I could send you some information on. And yeah, because would they need the 12 weeks? It would probably benefit them, but there's arenas of marketing, getting yourself out there that may not be the most valuable
Mhm.
for them if they're already in these meetings anyways, because they don't have to put themselves in those positions. But if you're looking at confidence and communication, and how to speak with influence, that kind of thing, I have some other programs for that.
That's great. I'm
Yeah.
interested.
Okay. I'll send you some details. It'd be fun to work with you. By the way, everyone, Greg was a guest on my podcast many moons ago, and it was a great podcast, and people are still downloading it. I have a podcast called Passion for Impact, and Greg does some pretty cool work in my social impact, really, right, with your company. And yeah, anyway, so Passion for Impact. Look up Greg's episode. I can't remember which number it is, but it was a good one.
Yeah, I should memorize the number, I guess, too.
Right? I
But
know.
every now and then somebody says, I just listened to your podcast. I'm like, oh, really? Okay.
You're a great guest. You're a great guest, which is
Thank
also a
you.
speaking skill, right? So, thanks, Greg. Did I hear someone else maybe have a question or an idea, thought?
Just curious about where do you necessarily start? I mean, obviously you want to be good at what you're doing, but you're going to have to get invited. You have to sort of audition, even for like if you're doing a chamber of commerce or what are some of those service groups like a Kinsman group or something of that nature? Do you have to sort of have yourself on tape or
Well, that's a good question. For those kind of events, what you need is to have a product you're offering, right? So let's use you as an example, right? So you grant writing. So you have a 45 or 60-minute session on grant writing, and you have a title. And in Speak Plus, we walk you right through all of this. You have a title, you have a small blurb on what it is you're offering that's going to speak to the audience you're going to be speaking in front of, with some like, here's the 4 top takeaways from my session. Boom, 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 boom. And then how they get a hold of you. And then you send that to the Chamber of Commerce. You send that to the service groups and say, hey, this may be of value to your members. Or I believe this could be I believe this is of value to your members. It's probably the better way to say it.
Mhm.
And if they're at all interested in grant writing, I would love to be able to offer this session. And there's different models for it. I've worked with many chambers. You can do like revenue share. You can offer it just as a service because perhaps you have a consulting company and you do grant writing for companies. There's a lot of different variations there. But to your point, to get into the opportunity, you do need to have a product you're sharing with them. When I say product, that's the title, description, takeaways. And you can create that on nothing needs to be complicated. Here's what I've learned. I've spent too much money and too much time on making things complicated. Send them the email, ask for the opportunity, and start getting their feedback, right? Saying,
Sure.
yeah, maybe it's like a session in the evening. Maybe it's like 3 sessions over 3 weeks. They can actually write some, I don't really know much about grant writing, but
Yeah.
yeah, but have something you can offer.
Okay.
And ask for the opportunity. Alyssa joined to prepare for public speaking. Oh, large committee, getting in there. That's awesome. You want to be prepared to speak with confidence in front of a large group of people. Yeah, that confidence and that ability to like be the host, right? To kind of engineer the experience, which I think is so important. That's great. Thank you for joining in. These are fun questions. Any other ones? Like questions? No? Well, thank you for joining in. And you may have more questions later. Feel free to send them to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on my website. I'm on Facebook, reluctantly on Instagram. So join me on all those platforms. But I truly hope that something today is practical enough, or maybe a slight mindset shift or tweak to get you to, moving forward in that positive momentum. Again, you're here because you have impact that you want to make. And for me to be a little teeny weeny part of that journey is a privilege. So thank you for joining in. I'll close it off here and I'll see you all online.
Thanks
Thanks,
so
everyone.
much.
Have a great day. See ya.